Hey, good morning. Um, just dropped off my kids at school. Gonna make a trip to IKEA, make a return of something purchased a little while ago. It's been sitting around and have a little bit of time this morning. So we'll do a drive and chat here. Um, Show the progression of Tesla's FSD. Um, Anxiously and excitedly waiting for the version 11 of FSD to drop and be available to the public beta testers, so I can download it and test it. That's where we got the single stack, meaning that the vision being used for City Street is going to now also be incorporated to use for highway. So it's all just one vision um, across the board, navigating the car through the world, city and highway, which is exciting and cool. We'd like to see how that's going. Seen some early indications that it has some new looks and feels, and brings back the auto park and maybe some other features quickly being returned and improved on. So maybe this weekend. I think they're trying to make a push to get this stuff out by the Investor Day. They're getting a lot of stuff ready for Investor Day. Make it a grand display of the power and evolution and progress and future of Tesla. Yeah, they've got a lot going on, and I think they really want to put it on a show. So um, I'm all for it. All right, we got FSD going. I started a little bit late. I should have just started from the parking lot, but we're on our way. We'll get on the highway and we'll get some city streets as well. Um, got a nice morning here in Jacksonville, Florida. Sunny, and again, blue skies, no clouds. Warming up, getting into the spring, which basically means we're going to be in the 80s and 90s shortly here in Jacksonville. Humidity will be coming back. Um, Spring is my favorite time of year, spring and fall, but it gets kind of hot pretty quickly here. But very enjoyable while it lasts, and Jacksonville for going to the beach, where it's not yet too hot, and you can actually enjoy the early part of the year at the beach. Have some lovely beaches here in Jacksonville. My favorite is either Atlantic or Neptune Beach. Really enjoy those, but lots of good beaches all the way down to St. Augustine is really nice, easy to get to. Some good stuff here. Just wish that there was a little bit more attention paid to just kind of the city well-being. Hard to explain that one. That's more in-depth conversation for later. Uh, Life is up and down, and had some downs this morning. I just got into a bit of a back and forth with my wife. Um, so have that on top of mind. Basically, just kind of we've got children, so we have some disagreements on approaches. Having some challenges with my son. He's getting a little bit he's acting rebellious. Basically, feels taking autonomy over his being, and while that's good and I appreciate it, that's definitely some upside. Builds having that confidence. I love it and want to foster that side, but with the kind of side effect is that he can be at times dismissive, kind of hurtful, or even unappreciative, and that's the part that I'm having trouble with. And I've talked to him. I've tried to apply reason, but at the age of 6, going on 7, reason is not always the at least verbal reasoning is not always the best method for getting your point across. So trying some other ways. At times I can find myself frustrated, and that comes out in maybe not the most effective manner. But yeah, so we had a bit of an argument this morning about what I'm doing and my approach, and at times it can be difficult. My wife, even after many years of being together, can have challenges communicating, and I don't know if this is, I don't know how this relates to other people, but for me, it's just something that I've always worked on and I've tried to improve on is understanding my emotions and how to how to handle that or react to my emotions. Um, and there's still an area where she will, most conversations will, when they become emotional tendencies take the lead rather than become part of the conversation. it just kind of take over, and that becomes very difficult to pull back and get back on track for something more constructive. Yeah, so kind of left it open-ended and unsettled, so that's not always the best. And I have a hard time just kind of letting that kind of. I have a hard time kind of compartmentalizing that and putting it aside, and it affects my day. So I'm trying to just get back to. I'm trying to get back to focusing on the other tasks at hand. So I was actually happy to like put the video on. It's always nice to speak out loud, get the get some of that off the chest. And moving on. So a lot of stuff I've been looking at some things that caught my eye on Twitter. There was this clip that was been showing about Mike Pence, the former vice president, making a round. I think he's making some rounds on TV. I think I've seen him in other things too. But recently he was on CNBC Business News Cycle talking about the economy, hitting the point. I think his prerogative or the narrative that he was out there hitting on was about the government's economic standing and its current debt situation. He emphasized our trajectory of where debt goes, and this conversation always eventually comes up in our ever expanding political cycle. And for the most part, like especially in the past 4 to 8 years, I've pulled myself away from politics. Not in a I don't know. I've become a little disenfranchised. I guess as you get older, you start to see things in a different light. You lose some of your idealism and hopefulness, and begin to see some of the more difficult, challenging parts of things. So I basically found that politics doesn't always play well for my mental well-being, and so I've pulled away from that. Got away from that sideshow. Kind of brought my focus more inward or on my closer circle of life, tending to my own garden, if you will. And but this caught my eye and really hit a bit of a nerve. He was going. I don't know. He wasn't being us with many politicians. They don't want to ever land on anything specific. They're just kind of floating this idea out there, but basically indicating that America needs to have a serious conversation. We need to talk about the debt. We've got a huge debt crisis on our horizon, approaching quickly. The debt is basically larger than our GDP, meaning that we have more debt on the books than what we produce yearly in the economy, and that's not sustainable. And I just find that, especially for career politicians that have been in the system for decades, rather hypocritical. And at the same time, I am willing to understand and give grace that mistakes happen, things occur. You still have to deal with challenges and address things that need to be resolved. But his next kind of connection with the debt is entitlements. Entitlements are the issue. We have too many entitlements. Our entitlements are sinking the ship. We have to put Medicare and Social Security on the table, and we just need to talk to the American people, let them know what's going on, and we'll get through this together. And I just find that just incredibly just unfair, really just being a bit biased and pushing a certain bias, and not really, to have an honest conversation, you have to be willing to admit all your mistakes. And if you're not willing to admit all the mistakes that have occurred to get to this point, the debt that we have today, and what that means, and really, at the end of the day, like how we function as an economy in a fiat system. And these are things and complexities that are hard to communicate as well as translate to a broader audience, but it can be done, and it should be attempted. But that's not what I don't. My sense, and my point of view, is that's not what he's trying to do, and what his larger group that he represents is trying to do. Um, and it's just another step in this ongoing progression since the '60s, essentially, that is pushing hard to remove workers' rights and minimize um, minimize encumbrances for businesses to focus on profits. And along with that tweet, or that tweet I saw with Mike Pence, I also saw kind of a nice dichotomy um, contrast with another person I followed tweeting about talking about the European situation and how the EU central banks over there are not handling this inflationary situation well. That they're playing by the same playbook of increasing interest rates in order to suppress um, consumption, when that what that's always done and will do in the current state is inflict harm and pain and suffering for the majority of the population. That's middle to lower class, working class, um, and only hurt them in order to create this illusion of betterment for the country. Um, So he's debating, and his point is that increasing interest rates is not the solution. We have to look at the problem and how we got here, which is this. And this, economies are very complex. So this is one of many things that occur. But what he's pointing to is that corporations and the way that corporations have been pushing and gaining power across the world have led to a profit cycle that pushes profit above anything else, and profits have continued to increase and been healthy for corporations, large businesses, and while costs have continued to increase, and the wages have not commiserated with that increase. So instead of focusing on the wage side, they're focusing on the consumption side, and instead of focusing on the profit side, again, they're focusing on the maintaining wages, like capping wages, because more wages mean people are going to consume more. And instead of worrying about like what's going on with the profit center and why are prices increasing in order to just continue to increase the returns of these companies, where's that balance? And the central bank is obviously just continuing to pound on the balance being overly carried by the working class, common good, the common man or woman. And yeah, it's just like, and all this is like short-term gains, and short-term in this at this level is whoops a daisy, that wasn't going right. I had to intervene. Short-term gains like over decades, but ultimately like all this happening is like you know we're stifling um, we're stifling people's just general ability to be great. We're stifling people's ability to go out and be curious and grow and develop and be happy. And for what? Like, just so that a certain small group of people can feed their desires to grow their power and feel special, when many of us, I mean all of us as humans, can and will have the potential to be special given the opportunity, um, through public, solid, the core of like where any society is done well is when they supported the common, the the broader community through public works and education, and incentivizing um, incentivizing scientific endeavorment, and incentivizing innovation and research. But that's just been all lost for this mighty dollar. And this is the weirdest part. The mighty dollar is just a piece of paper. At the end of the day, it's like it doesn't produce anything. You can't do anything. If everything goes away, the dollar is not going to keep you warm very long. Um, it's just infuriating. The way that tax dollars are just thrown around and given away to siphoned off is, so it's a broader conversation. It definitely, I don't know, those two things like coming at the same time just got me more, reminding me of things I did not enjoy about politics and where things have been going. Um, I'm glad I was able to talk to you about it. So here we are. Obviously got here without intervention until we some reason didn't really get to like assess it while I was talking, but was pulling into the parking lot and it didn't make the right. It wasn't making the right hand turn. It was like going to go straight. So sometimes that happens when, especially when trying to get into a parking area or into a location that has parking. It's not exactly sure where it needs to go because of the mapping. But anyways, had to intervene, pulled in there, but otherwise a pretty nice trip. Hope you enjoyed.